Hello and welcome to Wikipedia Weekly Network here, where Albin Larsson and I, Jan Ainali, usually are editing Wikidata live. But not today, Albin.
Indeed.
What are we doing today?
No. We're taking a bit of a look back to the various sessions we have seen during WikidataCon, which is currently ongoing.
Yes, it's the yearly Wikidata conference, and it's going on for 3 days, so lots of sessions. And it's actually going on right now, so we're not really sure how many people will leave that just to hear us talk about what was in the days before. But we thought that would be an interesting thing to do. And of course, we were also hugely grateful and humbled by the community award that we won for these sessions yesterday. I was a little bit blown away.
Indeed, for the, I think, global community building.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. But getting to it, I think I should try to share my screen here. So what we were thinking today was to take a look at the sessions that have been during the conference, and also, hello, Alicia. And you can find the conference itself on Wikidata, the WikidataCon 2021. But if you want to find the thing that we are showing, this is the schedule that we are using. Yesterday, all the sessions were streamed live. I'm going to take this down quickly. I'll put it back up. And you can already find that one on the Wikimedia Deutschland's YouTube channel. But today they're not streamed, so they will be uploaded later to Commons. I'm not sure if they're going to YouTube as well.
It would take a few days, they also said. So
yeah,
I imagine we would see it in the coming work week.
Yeah. But for now, this is the page that we're referring to. And the opening, I'm not sure if we have much to say about the opening. Do you have any comments?
No.
No.
I can't claim that.
I think one of the things was that the pre-recorded parts from Wikimedia Brazil had really high production value. They must have some, either they hired someone or they have someone that's really good in their community doing video editing, because it was super nice to see. So that was pretty cool. And then we had an interesting session, Decolonizing Wikidata. Why does knowledge justice matter for structured data? By Anasuya Sengupta from Whose Knowledge. And I'll click in here so you can actually see a little bit what it said it was about. Did you watch this one?
I did. I think that there was a lot of things to take away from this one, and I think it's worth watching for those of you who can catch up with it later. This one might still be on YouTube as well from the live.
Yes. So this one is on YouTube. You can watch it right now, and very nicely, Wikimedia Deutschland has actually put timestamps, because it's a 10-hour live stream. So you don't have to scroll through. You can just open up the description and click your way through to all of the things on the first day. So that's really cool.
Right.
I thought this was super interesting, and Anasuya delivers the talk very convincingly, but to me it was a little bit too abstract, so I don't really know what to do now. I didn't get any concrete plans on, all right, we need a new property for this, or we need to have an editor on here or there. Perhaps there are not that easy solutions to this thing, but it wasn't really hinted on what is the solution space. So there's actually a follow-up session going on right now, so it should really be in there. But I hope
think this was really good, like a conversation starter, so to say.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing is the point as well, to start off the conference with a conversation starter like this.
Yeah. And we have some More Swedes joining us. Nice. So going further in the schedule, we had I think this has become sort of a yearly tradition. What happened and what's coming around Wikidata and Wikibase. It was a very packed session with a lot of stats from the last year. Was there anything that you saw that like, oh, this was interesting?
I think we got very much of a benefit within like the Wikidata community that they are already rather transparent with what they are up to. So there wasn't a lot of things that were like, hey, this is totally new. Some of the statistics was good, and I think they went even more deep into it in some of the Orchard session. I'm sure we will come to in a few minutes. One thing that they kind of hinted about, and I remember us because Jan and I was actually watching parts of this one together. They hinted about something they call Wikibase Cloud, and here Jan and I we didn't exactly know what this would be in the future, so we kind of know a similar project which this is based on, but I might suspiciate that it might be a commercial idea from Wikimedia Deutschland. Jan wasn't that sure.
No, I wasn't sure because of the same reason that you are a little bit skeptic. Like, is this a space that we would like to get into? Yeah. Like, surely this is just WB Stack, which is something that exists today, but in a nicer package and officially in Wikimedia Deutschland, because I think WB Stack for now is sort of a side project from one of the employees.
Yeah, from Autumn.
Yeah. So moving that into that might be the case, but we didn't think about to ask it at the time, so we don't really know. Perhaps someone will follow up with us.
They was very brief, so I hope we can get a follow up on that in the future.
Yeah. Otherwise, I thought it was good to see the stats in a clear way, because there's a lot of stats in the Grafana suite, but I think there's so much stats about Wikidata. It's actually really hard to find the stats that you want to see. So here we got a really nice packaging of the best key stats to keep an eye on. All right, moving on to reimagining Oh, did I scroll too much there? Yes, reimagining Wikidata from the margins with. Did we lose? Here's the thing could be improved on the page, because we only had the speaker on the Erika Azzolini from Wikimedia Brazil. We didn't have that on when you clicked in here. And I think this is also a little bit connected to the Anasuya's talk. Feels like there's something in here. I'm not really sure how I can help.
Yeah, I think this was one of the questions that was given also during the presentation itself.
Now I don't really hear you. Now it's too low.
I'm sorry, everyone. I have a day when my sound is changing automatically.
Yes.
And now I imagine it's too high.
Yes, it's a little bit too high. Maybe I can do something in this end. Do I have a...
Yeah, maybe if I could just raise it to the max. And you can...
If you raise it to the max, and I'll see if I can lower your mic settings here to not be automatically... And say something again.
Yeah, here I am.
All right. I lowered you to half here, so perhaps that might be good. It sounds a little bit distorted, but at least it's a good volume.
Okay, because I'm sitting here clicking the entire time. Because for some reason, it keeps just dragging it to the top today.
Yeah. And yes, this is the idea. We sit on the sidelines today. and we comment it. And so that's sort of the idea of the program today. And if you have anything to comment as well or want to fill in and share your thoughts about it, so just write in the chat and we'll happy to bring it up.
Yeah, feel free to share your highlights as well, in case
Yeah.
we might not have watched everything, because there's a lot in the program, so
Yeah.
it hasn't been possible, even with 2 persons.
Yeah, so there was 3 parallel tracks. And then there was a very, I guess, important session on scaling the Wikidata query service. And this is something that has been talked about and discussed earlier. It was really nice to see this come together as a super open and transparent session. I'm really impressed by this one.
Yeah.
Did you feel any, like, there were quite a lot of technical details in this talk?
Yeah, it was very open, and it was very nice actually to have both like the technical lead of Wikidata there, but also people from the search team at Wikimedia Foundation who is also working on this. And actually today there was actually more of a panel on this where we could ask questions, and they were super responsive. And that was one of the highlights of my day today.
Nice. And I'm particularly happy that this conversation really takes place, because it's needed. And there's also some short-term solutions that are discussed, but if we can make a long-term solutions, we might not even need that. So that's how it might go. So
yeah,
very
so
cool.
That was also super good that they were open with, we have short-term solutions, we don't want to use them, but we could if we need to.
Yeah.
And that's very transparent.
Yes, indeed. And that also makes it possible for everybody to be aware of what are the options on the table, or and which options on the table do we really not like. So how much extra energy would you want to put into it? And then perhaps I think this might have been the highlight of this WikidataCon for this year so far for me. It was the Wikidata Community Awards ceremony. It's usually always very a positive experience, and you see a lot of positive and cool things. We have a question here. Any ideas for tools? I don't. Did you mean for the VDQS service to create? I'm not sure that was really what discussion was. This was more like, since everything is growing so fast, it is like, how can we just keep the service going with the current pace, because the graph is growing so big.
I think in general during the conference, I even think they have like a specific room for people just to ask for new tools to be created. So if you sign up for the conference and are looking into what ideas people are, I think that's a great resource.
Yes. I got an idea today, which I just emailed on a mailing list. So we'll see if that gets received somewhere. I might come back to that when we come to that session, because it was really connected to one. But on the Community Awards ceremony, like we said, this show actually got awarded, so we're very happy with that. And then our project, Albin, with the Gov directory, also got an award, so we were super happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people were also awarded fairly, so that was having awards is always a nice thing. It makes people.
Oh, and I think we lost John. So that means that I will need to. No, he's already back.
Yes,
and he's back already.
I pressed back in the wrong window.
Oh, okay.
So
I was going into emergency mode here. Okay, I need to share my screen now. It might take a few minutes, and then you're popping up.
Yeah. I didn't crash anything. I just went back on in StreamYard instead of here. All right. So that was yesterday, and all of that is on YouTube already. So you can go watch that. It's 10 hours of video, but a lot of pauses as well. So you can fast forward some places. Oh, yes, because it continued even in the evening. Oh, so we're not really done yet.
Here's the rest of the 10 hours.
Yes. Oh, and this was an interesting discussion. Igbo and Abstract Wikipedia, a conversation. Here, Sylvia interviewed Denny and Tochi, giving an introduction to Abstract Wikipedia, and specifically also what it could mean for some a language like, was it Dagbani?
I think it was. However,
Yes.
this was past my bedtime.
No, it was Igbo. Yes.
Igbo. Okay.
Yeah.
This was past my bedtime, so I'm now listening to your perspectives too.
All right. Yes. It's also very interesting. Denny is very good at explaining the current views on how abstract Wikipedia can become. So if you don't really know it yet, you should check this out. I can also plug a little bit. I made an interview with Denny in the Wikipedia podden in Swedish or in English. It's usually in Swedish, but this episode was in English because I couldn't persuade Denny to learn Swedish for the pod. But that one is also really a good summary of abstract Wikipedia, and it's such a promising idea. So very excited for that. Not so much news though in this. We had a Brazilian Glam panel. I was really in the beginning. Joao opened this, and he's such an eloquent speaker. It was like poetry hearing him in the beginning. So if you just want to hear someone talking about Wikidata and knowledge in general in a very beautiful setting, you should go watch this. It's in Portuguese, but it was subtitled in English, and I was just blown away by that. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Joao, for using the power of language. And then it was followed up by Luciana and Solange, and how they were looking at some of the cultural heritage in Brazil, but it was also connected to with an aspect of the decolonization of Wikidata and Glam in general here. So I thought this was taking it to a more practical level from the more abstract keynotes. So that was also nice. But my real takeaway with this was Joao. And then there was a keynote which I was a little bit confused by. So it was called Together for a Sustainable World. It was given by, now we lost the name here again. So Johannes Michael Kissel, who is in the German, and this is the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. So the German Society for International Collaboration. And they talked about renewable energy. And unfortunately, I was engaged in the chat at the time, so I didn't really follow the wiki aspect of this. And I was also a little bit confused by a German giving us a talk in Portuguese. That messed my head up a little bit. So even though it was also subtitled in English. Yes, I think you might have a point there.
Yeah, exactly. So we should note that this talk was a sponsored one from, was it Google?
Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale
Right.
Zusammenarbeit.
Okay, indeed. So a couple of sponsor had sponsored talks. I'm not sure. I don't think all of them, but I think Google and this one had one.
Yes, and this is I'm not sure if it's a department in the German Ministry of Foreign Ministry or something like that. So it's a public body at least. And then there was the Google keynote, which I was skeptic reading it was a Google keynote, but it turned out to be a really nice project. So what they have been doing was actually digitizing a lot of Tibetan heritage, and they explained the process they had for using OpenRefine and other tools to make the data more available, and also how it was connected to Wikidata and how that improved how things ended up in Google. And yes, it was an external point of view, but it was also interesting because since they were sort of working within the Wikidata realm, it's also like it a little bit part of the community. They felt really. I felt that they seemed like working with the data really sincerely, and they also talked about how hard it is with language to reconciliate sometimes, and they were afraid they made some duplicates. And of course, with this super cool community that we do have, I think there was some at least found during the chat. Someone like could search in the data, but
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
And Anshore says here, yes, the Wikimedia Google folks are always awesome. And this was really, it was a good talk, and also really humbly given. So it wasn't this what you might think with a Google keynote title, like, oh, we're going to sell our products. It was really not that at all.
Right. And usually the cultural heritage work is also like, I think it started as a lobbying project against the European Union. So I think they still have a bit of that culture going on.
Yeah. And last for me this day was the Brazilian culture session, which didn't really have any Wikimedia angle, but it was samba music and some storytelling about guiding in a different way in Brazil. And this was just lovely. The singers and the orchestra was beautiful. And then they also had a little bit of a food clip, you could say. They didn't really make food, but they talked about a treat and what items they were in Wikidata and of which persons they were named after. And that has some really top-notch production value. It was really beautifully done. So you should just skip into that. And the interesting part, the treat that they made really looked like the Swedish Araxboll. So random. Like, here's a Brazilian treat with it, and it was called the Brigadeiro after a brigadier, a politician, former or connected with some military in some way, and it looked just like a very classical Swedish pastry.
Oh, it sounds like a session one should bring some food to, otherwise go away hungry.
Yes. That clip was quite short, but really high production value. So yeah. And after that, that was my bedtime. So I didn't watch the Latin America and Caribbean gathering. And then I have to scroll a little bit to the right here. You come to this date this morning. So where I was in a world which 99% of Wikidata editors never come to wikidata.org.
I was to the same one, but I already know that when I rewatched the global templates one, because that sounds super exciting.
Yes, I've seen a little bit about that before, so I went also into this one. This one was very much a conversation. Lydia gave a short introduction and problem statement, which is wasn't much more than here, and then really open up the room for like, well, if people are using external tools, what does that mean for Wikidata, and what would we like them to do? And then there was open to suggestions and stuff like that. And I hope she got some takeaways from that. At least there was, after a while, some sort of a discussion coming up there.
And yes, Nicholas, my mic is incredibly weird today. It's even weirder on my side. It's magic, but in the wrong way.
And then I think we split up a little bit. I went into the Wikidata in Ireland, hearing from Rebecca O'Neill. They explained the history of Wikilove's monuments, going from being mostly manual to be Wikidata driven. Quite nice to hear in a short talk what happened.
And I actually went to the taking feedback from user at scale, so I had a little bit of a break there, and it was incredibly interesting because one of the things we talked about here was some type of feedback mechanism for Wikidata, and this is something that I know Jan and I have been like thinking about every now and then for years, like for external tools, just having the ability to say, hey, something is wrong here, an editor should have a look at it. And that was kind of what we discussed. It was very much centered around such a possibility. I think the reference was that they have something similar for the Google Knowledge Graph. And also sometimes such graphs take data from Wikidata, and is there a way for us to also get that type of feedback data to our editors? Super interesting. I hope we can continue that conversation going forward, because that would be incredibly useful.
And I stayed in this room. Unfortunately, I got a phone call just when when Alicia's talk started, so I missed the talk, even though I saw all the slides. But essentially, I think, and I'll have to go back and watch this one because it looked really interesting, even though it was just 10 minutes, how they have been enhancing the data about the Wikilove's monuments photos with structured data on commons. So they have been really working a lot with bots editing there. And yes, and my call lasted through the Susanna's call about structured context data. So that one I didn't even catch anything on. But then the Edgar Porto talking about Wikilove's monuments in Brazil was really interesting, especially in his slide. He had a really cool workflow chart of the entire Wikilove's monuments process from an organizing perspective, like from where you start with the data, what's happening on Wiki for regular editors, what photographers and newbies meet, and how the jury is working. So it was beautiful to see just for that. And oh, we even have the slides here. I might even be able to show it. Let's see. There we see it. Maybe it was just uploaded and the things are not rendered yet. Come on. Commons, you can do it. No. Commons cannot do it.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
If I press one of these, will that work? Yes, that worked. So this is how they think about their entire process. And I think this one could be useful for anyone who wants to improve or rationalize their Wikiloves monuments or any Wikiloves process, because this could be, of course, used for Wikiloves Earth as well, or any photo contest. So you should really hear him talk and download his slides as well. And then I think this was perhaps one of the more thought-provoking talks here from Paul Burley, talking about Wikiloves monuments, but from a photographer perspective. And as he's not, as he said it, I'm really not a photographer. He's a librarian and he loves cultural heritage, and that's the aspect that we need to document things and the importance and urgency of that. And he also highlighted not only it's not enough that we have one photo of everything, and that's where when I talking about ideas, I realized, of course, we do have other image properties as well. So I just quickly over lunch today went through this is a list over. I took the wrong list. Let me see if I can grab the right list, because this is the original list. This is the list that is being used by the contest today. But I made
kind of. But that's a different story.
Yes. That is a different story. This is one of the lists that you can use. And this shows you, like, does the thing have an image or not? And there's an upload button in the bottom right here as well, which goes to the campaign. And I made a listeria list instead, where I used, and is my internet dying now, or is it just my computer being slow? Using more properties, because we have a lot of image properties. And unfortunately, this is in Swedish now, but it is the panorama, the spherical image, the winter view, interior, aerial images, image of entrance, video, and all of these things that we would like to have, especially for cultural heritage. And wouldn't be that, well, of course, a spherical image, you need a special camera for, an aerial image as well. Winter image needs some planning, but that planning could be done now because winter is coming, as you all know, at least in Sweden.
This is something I've started doing a lot when I do Wikilove monuments, because I'm not a very good photographer, but I still want to document things because my general interest in cultural heritage. So what I usually have started doing is taking pictures of various details that are interesting and might change over time. And it's something I recommend for everyone doing, because even if a building or monument is already photographed 100 times, there's always something more you can photograph on it.
Yeah, and even this template it really is it's too little detail that we would want, but at least it's better than now than when we just have one image.
I went to the Don't Get Hit by a Bus.
Oh, that's an action-packed title.
It was an action-packed title, and it was an action-packed discussion. Um, I'm not sure how much you will actually be able to catch of it from the panel itself, where you might need to chat as well, so to say. But essentially, this was about the dependency on various maintainers for the various tools we use, both for Wikidata and Commons. And I one of my takeaways from this, we also did a bit of a mapping exercise where we mapped high impact tools with and their health of them. What I think is a little bit sad about this that the conversation was very much around we're dependent on developers. Um, but I would rather see we're also very incredibly dependent on the Wikimedia Foundation. And I think the later is a bigger problem than the sooner, because the Wikimedia Foundation got a lot of power over the volunteer community in this question. So, yeah, takeaways, but it's still good to have this conversation going. But I think we might need a different perspective as well.
Mm-hmm. And were there any suggestions for solutions, or was it mostly recognizing the problem for now?
I think it was recognizing the problem, and also there was some discussion about creating a space to continue the discussion, like a Telegram group.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I would imagine it would be announced in a different Telegram channel, like the Wikidata one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was more about creating the space and.
All right, and
there is another one.
Creating a Telegram group.
Thank you, actually.
Wikimedia Tool supporters. All right, that's very useful. That's great.
Indeed. So very much about creating space for discussion, and I'm glad we have a space to talk about this issue from the various perspectives I believe exists.
Yes, this entire Wiki Loves Monuments track was had a very nice ending discussion as well. Well worth watching. And then there was a talk here that I went to about how the descriptions from Wikidata are being used on other projects. And as you might know, that the English Wikipedia is using something that is called short description instead of the descriptions from Wikidata on the mobile site. And Alberto went through the history of that, but also that something I didn't knew was that other project has requested this as well and being denied. So only the English Wikipedia has this activated. That was something I did not know, which is interesting because recently there has been a discussion on Swedish Wikipedia about not being really happy with the descriptions, partly because they are not shown for desktop editors. And Alberto also, I think he had, besides that, as an argument, also for other things that have been brought up. So short and sweet talk, and I think you're right here. Should never have had it enabled. And one of the risks, he said, is this is really sort of splitting the Wikimedia community instead of resolving the issues and working together. Also just a 15-minute short talk, but really cool. Did you go to the Pink Pony session?
I had it on a little bit in the background.
Yeah.
Was able to do other things. It was just a nice place to raise various issues and feature requests. There was a lot of talk about data types, in particular for dates, because they can always be improved. There are different calendars throughout time. And the UI could also, how it's rather smart. We usually see that when we do edits, that we can type it in various ways and it's figured out what we want to say. How to improve that for more languages and all that kind of stuff. So it was that type of discussion, but around various things.
Yeah.
A great initiative for now, not that useful maybe later on, but being able to be there and raise your concern and issues and your knowledge. Great opportunity. It happens every year, I believe, at WikidataCon. So for next year, take the opportunity if you have a feature request you would like to discuss.
Yeah, and we forgot to mention each of these sessions has an Etherpad link to them, and not everyone had them used a lot, but some of them has a lot of good things in it. And I think this will be transferred to the wiki later, but if you're curious already now, you can go in, and here we can see a lot of wishes for pink ponies. And this is also a recurring session. It has been going on for a number of years, so it's nice to see it pop back up. And then the Commons file info boxes based on Wikidata and structured data on Commons. Jarek was talking about that, and I think that my takeaway from this session is that due to the sheer number of all the files we have, and that some of the files are really odd. You want to make something that is really stable and can handle everything, because when you make an edit, it will affect so many things. Like some templates are used on tens of millions of pages, which means that it will have ripple effects. But also perhaps no, I clicked the wrong thing. But also the problem we're trying to solve is right now we usually have to add things twice. We add it in the info box template as text and then also as structured data. And then very, very promising, and I'm really looking forward here. Sandra Fauconnier, who is in the project working on the structured data on Commons for OpenRefine, giving OpenRefine support to work with structured data on Commons. And there's already, now I don't remember the time plan in my head here. Maybe there's links to slides here. Perfect. Because there was some a timeline here I wanted to show, because there's some things coming up here that's really cool. And let this poor internet load. I think it's actually my computer who is running too much things at the same time. Yes, Nicholas, this was super exciting, because there's some things here that I didn't know was coming, and it's really, really, no, was it this slide? No, this slide. So already now, there's a beta service, and I think that here is the link, commonsreconcile.toolforce.org. It's experimental for now, so it might not work, but the second step by end of January is that they're doing work that you can actually pull in the info template text. And since OpenRefine is really good in actually cleaning up stuff, that might be really useful for reusing the text already in the info template. So that might be pretty cool.
Indeed, and I think there's a thing not mentioned in the presentation, but currently actually the latest beta of OpenRefine supports writing to Orchard Wikibases that are not Wikidata. So not in particular Commons, because Commons is a little bit special, but already, if you, for example, got your own external Wikibase or something like that, you can already use the Wikidata extension to it.
Yeah.
So it's in the beta right now.
Yes. So this will be really fun and useful, and give us a second boom for structured data on commons, I guess. Or maybe the tooling that we really need in the first place. So very promising. And then this depictor is a tool that we have shown in this in our show a couple of times back. I don't remember exactly which episode, but since then it has been a little bit more polished, and Hey showed here how you use it, a little bit of the tricks and things, but I didn't see much new than what we already shown. But it was, of course, new to a lot of people here, because unfortunately, not everyone is watching us yet. Oh, and yes, this one was also really cool. Florence Deward showed the ISSA tool or ISSA tool. It's a bit similar to Depictor, but also showed what the things are different, and gave a very nice overview of how the tool works. And these were a series of very short things. You went to the Ontology?
I started by going to the Ontology because I only read the title. I thought, hey, this is gonna be about Wikidata's RDF Ontology because it's usually very questioned out there. I learned a while in it that it's not about the RDF ontology, but rather about Wikidata's its own ontology. And then I switched. I still think they have a lot of interesting conversation here, especially one takeaway, even though I didn't go into this like super interested, was that not only do we have like modeling that doesn't match ocean modeling, but different people also have different perspectives on what things are. And that is much more of a fundamental problem around Wikidata's ontology than the modeling itself. People from various places believe differently about and Wikidata item, what it is, what it represents, but every human also sees things differently. I think there was a slide we just mentioned colors, and I was really thinking, yeah, we will see colors slightly differently. And I wonder how that impacts what information we put in Wikidata. So even though I didn't I went to the presentation thinking about something incredibly differently, but I went away still with this small note in the back of my head that this is a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I watched this talk the first time in the Wikidata Quality Days some months back, and it was really interesting as well.
Yeah, another thing that was very good in that one was that I think they made a bit of a classification of issues, which was very nice to see.
Yeah, of different kinds of problems.
Yeah. But after that, I went to finding pathways of collaboration for sustainable Wikidata software development. And although I missed the beginning of this presentation, I still catched a little bit what it was about. Did you go to this one, Ron?
No, I was in the second track still here.
Okay, so this was Wikimedia Point having gotten funding for introducing kind of a Northern partner into Wikidata development to have someone else also develop it. And I think this is a great idea because something we see, because when a couple of years ago Wikimedia Deutschland pushed a little bit for Wikibase being implemented in various cultural heritage institutions, and I think they started maybe a couple of years back where those said, hey, we did this pilot project with Wikimedia Deutschland, and then they started reaching out to the developer community asking, we need help updating this, we need help maintaining this, and Wikimedia Deutschland had kind of abandoned the pilot project, and no one really know how to maintain this because it was still a new thing. So I think this is a great initiative, like spreading knowledge about the internals of Wikibase. And yeah, it's a super good project because it also forces like Wikimedia Deutschland to share the internal knowledge, and I think that has a benefit for like the volunteer developers as well that want to create new stuff.
Indeed. Now, where were we? I missed these two though because I was eating and making a template. I came back around in the end of this one, so I didn't really catch what this one was about. Were you in the challenges?
I actually ate while watching today.
All right.
My better half also had a lot of work and needed
Yeah.
to do the same.
Yeah.
So I went straight to the Wikidata query service scaling challenges, and I think
All right.
we already touched on it before because yesterday there was a talk about it, but this was just another great open way, incredibly transparent, having people there which we could ask questions to. I asked a couple of ones myself. And in general, even if there aren't like any like straight solutions in near time, it was an incredibly transparent way of saying it. That about, for example, I have this. We don't want to do this, but it might be necessary. We hope we want to do this, and just being open with that, and also inviting us to ask questions in this way. Was super good and a really good sign of transparency. Something else I liked was also that we got to discuss a little bit about Wikimedia Commons Query Service, the VCQS, and they announced that they plan to move it into production by the end of the year.
Ooh, good news!
That is super great.
Yes.
It will still be behind authentication, but it will get live updates and such, and that's amazing. We have used it a couple of times during our live editing, and we will surely do that again.
Indeed. That's really nice to hear. Getting some support. Oh, yes. And then we were both in our own presentation, of course, talking about our Gov directory project. I'm not sure if there's so much more to say. Then if you're interested, you should, of course, go to govdirectory.org or to Wikiproject Gov directory and get involved, because we're trying to do the whole world and we can't do it on two persons. Yes, I went into this lightning talk from Sadiq about Wikidata and minority languages. This one was about Dagbani, and he showed a little bit how they work, and very refreshingly, he could create the article about Paris in Dagbani from scratch because it wasn't created already. That felt like Swedish Wikipedia, when I joined, already had like 50,000 something articles. So all the like that was already created. So it's very cool to see one create articles about Paris in real time. Unfortunately, he lost connection in the end, so it was a little bit. His point was a little bit lost, even though it came after. Were you in the measuring and monitoring data quality?
I was, and we got to talk about a lot of the various tooling for measuring data quality, shaped expressions, constraints, What the new tooling that we've been shown a little in the past, like for finding errors and such, and also they had a very interesting set of categories for various quality types of quality issues, which was super interesting to see, which I think I'm gonna go back to later on to just to wrap them around my head, maybe keep some of them in mind for editing here or something like that.
Nice. And I was in here the Ainali and User text generation with Wikidata items and lexemes with Mahir, which I think we have was in our chat here earlier. And this one is so super cool because this is sort of showing in a more tangible way what abstract Wikipedia and wiki functions could look like. Like it's a proof of concept. It's not what it will look like, but it's really showing what one can do with the data in the lexeme namespace and how it's connected to the rest of the Wikidata already today, and generating strings of sentences, meaningful sentences of text out of a totally abstract representation. So that is, if you haven't understood what abstract Wikipedia can be, I highly encourage you to see this, because this is not an abstract talk. This is really show and tell. So yes, really cool to see, and also really cool because there's some Swedish in it as well. You don't have to blush. This was great. This was awesome. Oh, woohoo! French as well. Super. That's really cool. Growing by the minute. I went from there. I missed the language discussion, but went into the Q&A afterwards here because, as I said, watching the keynote, I felt this was an important topic, but I didn't really know how to use it. So I went in there. Unfortunately, although there was a lot of interesting question asked and answers were given, it was still on a pretty high level and abstractness. So I feel there's a step in between here to make this actionable, or at least that's what I feel. My imagination is not helping me today. Did you see the Wolfram language thing?
I did not. I took a break here until Alicia's talk.
All right. I went into the how can we reimagine Wikidata from the margins, just mostly to see and hear from Mariana Iskander. It was she's on this listening tour, so she had a lot of questions to the community. So it was mostly she was asking questions and giving follow-up questions for that. So hopefully she felt that she got a lot of nice takeaway from it. The takeaway I got from it was that it was not only a really like a friendly and warm discussion, but it also felt like the entire Wikidata community at its finest, perhaps. So it was a really nice, good atmosphere in that talk. So that was nice. So you went to Alicia Fagerling's Wikidata for Authority Control, Share Museum Knowledge with the World. How was that?
I went to this one very much because I'm working within this project currently. So it showed off some of early work I've been doing on some visualizations. But indeed, of course, if you're interested in this in general, And I think Wikimedia Sweden's work is really inspiring because often we see Glam Wiki work being like Wikimedia residents doing something for a museum and the knowledge not really sticking. But this is a project where Wikimedia Sweden is very much focused on letting the Glams do things themselves with things like OpenRefine. And I think they will really go out of this project being able to just continue their work with Wikimedia in this way. And that I think is a great thing. So if you're interested in this type of thing, highly recommend.
Right, nice. Yes, so I was in here. I catch the end of this one, the QRpedia to audio QRpedia, which seems to be a way to scan a QR code to get the article read in your phone, which is an interesting use case, of course. Then I went into the Olaf Jansen 50 cool new things you can now do with your collection highlights. He based it on a blog post he made. He's the Wikipedian in residence in the National Library of the Netherlands. And I think it was nice because he made a point out of some of these things might seem really trivial for us as Wikipedians, but there are things they cannot do today in their own websites. So with the help of transferring things to the Wikimedia universe, he could make new sort of templates and lists on Wikipedia pages, which could show off the content in a new way, in a very flexible way. So that was an interesting and refreshing aspect that, like, we might think that some of our tooling is old in some ways, but for some things, it's also actually really useful and workable. And yes, as Jane says, was very cool. Oh, and Nicholas as well. Yes, a lot of low hanging fruits, and I think the nice thing was also many of them aren't that technically hard to do. It's a little bit of work, of course, upload things to Wikidata or Wikipedia and Wikidata, but certainly doable by almost any institution. I just quickly looked into the Wiki documentaries session. This is a tool that is using a lot of data from the different Wikimedia projects, trying to build stories about things, but also, if I understood it correctly, also are using a lot of tools within the Wikimedia universe to be able to put the things together. And that was really nice to see how it's also taking some existing tools and adding more value to them and through them. Did you watch this one, or?
I did not. At this point, I made pancakes so I could eat something before we started this.
That sounds lovely with some pancakes. What did I see here? No, so here I stopped watching and got prepared for this, because now we're up to where we are right now. So these are the things going on, and I think we continued much longer than we had planned. We've already been on this for an hour. I was planning to go into the Wiki API connector, but I think I'll have to watch that one later. All in all, so far, what do you think?
I think this program in general strikes a very good balance between quality and being inclusive. And we see some conferences requiring like incredible production value, and therefore some people aren't able to present, and we're missing some viewpoints. I think here we have seen a very good mix of things. And And yeah, it's super interesting conversation. Also, I was a bit in the social space yesterday where we could just join and talk with each other. That's great. Really enjoy that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to for tomorrow.
Indeed. I think the one thing that I have some complaints about so far, or maybe learnings for next one, is that there was a time here that they were really back to back. And of course, each speaker wants to use all their time. So they really go to the end. And then there's technically, they wanted to stop the recording, start a new one. So there was always some minutes. They should have planned 5 minutes break. And that's also good because you can get up and get some water and don't really miss something. So in general, I think there should be at least 5 minutes between each session, having things back to back in the same track. Yeah, I think that was a little bit of it was bad for all. It was bad for the coordinator having to excuse everyone that they were late. It was bad experience for the one being cut off. It was bad for the one coming on late.
Yeah. No, overall, I mean, there was some minor things. I think one problem I had, the first set of sessions yesterday was that they started early. So when it's digital and I can just walk to my computer,
yeah,
I imagine it's starting at a certain time, but instead, because one session ended a little early, they started the next one also early, which was a bit problematic.
Yeah.
But overall, very good.
Yes. And then, of course, there's always this conundrum of too much to choose from. Like there were several times, I want to watch them all three here. So hopefully we don't have to wait too long for the videos to come up. But it seems a lot of things are being recorded at least.
Yeah, that was something I wished as well, that everything was live streamed on YouTube, because I didn't feel like this tool we used was as good as YouTube. So sometimes when I used, for example, earlier today, I was just cooking and listening in, and I had a bit of problems with the tool, but I would rather just have been able to click on the YouTube stream and have it in the background.
Yeah.
That way.
I, on the contrary, really appreciate the tooling, especially it's being a big little button in the bottom of the venue list, because that's of course open source that we love. So I really enjoyed being in there, and of course we all have to learn the new environments, and hopefully soon we will have this as one of our standard tools, and everybody will know where the sharing button is.
Indeed. I just hope that we will have a fallback, because some users need a fallback.
Yes. And I guess with that, we're up to speed with this, and we'll let everybody go watch the actual program instead of this meta commentary. But of course, we will be back next week, and next week we do have a theme. We do, because it's the COP26 going on. So we will be doing editing around that. We haven't really specified what, but that will be the theme at least.
Indeed. Might be something broader about climate on my end.
Yeah, I'll try to figure out what I can do specifically to around the event, because it's a large event and a lot of things going on. But until then, happy editing.
Happy editing.